Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar, Ministering to Kids with Mental Health Issues. We are so excited to have you guys be a part of this webinar. And I just wanted to do a quick introduction. I'm Carrie. I'm part of the team here at Nathaniel's Hope. And I see her to my left. I don't know where you see her, but this is Marie Cook. She is our co-founder and executive director of Nathaniel's Hope. And below us is Brianna Edwards, who is our special guest today. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Marie to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Well, we are so excited to have you with us today, no matter where you're coming from. And I love technology that we can be together. We're with Nathaniel's Hope, and if you're not familiar with the mission of Nathaniel's Hope, our goal is to kind of cheer on and celebrate kids with all kinds of special needs, disabilities, unique needs, as well as educate and equip the community, particularly the church, in knowing how to welcome in this community and be able to assist this community, enrich the lives of this community. So we're excited you're with us today. We do a series of programs throughout the year, whether it's our International Birthday Club. We train churches to do free respite care. We have a big festival coming up called Make 'em Smile. I'll tell you a little bit about that later, but we really, our heart is to really just see you equipped to minister to kids that might have unique needs. And as you know, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And though I didn't have a child, my child Nathaniel, which is what Nathaniel's Hope is named after, was born with multiple special needs and unique needs. And parents that have kids that have unique needs, it can be a very tough journey to go along in life and just kind of know how to care for your child and have others know how to care for your child. And our son actually had a change of address at 4 years old and moved to heaven. And after that, we began Nathaniel's Hope. But, you know, he had a lot of physical and medical needs, and we call kids with special needs VIPs, kids with value and incredible purpose. And those kids can have such a varying degree of disabilities or needs that they may have. And we've recently kind of began to focus a little bit more looking at mental health needs of kids, you know, particularly trauma and just so many parallels between kids with disabilities, what we would deem as typical disabilities, and mental health issues. So May is a National Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we thought it would be good to come on and kind of tackle this issue. This is a month where we kind of recognize individuals with behavioral and mental health conditions and those who support them. So today I am very excited to have somebody with us who supports this community. Brianna Cook Edwards is a registered mental health counselor. She's a registered play therapist, or actually I should say licensed mental health counselor. She'll correct me on that. A registered play therapist, but I guess most importantly, she's my daughter. And so she's not on here because she's just my daughter, but she's very qualified, and so happy to have you with us today, Brianna.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
And so you kind of function in this whole realm. We're talking about, you know, Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know everybody's kind of in a different place of their understanding. And I wonder if we could start out with today just by talking about mental health and really what is mental health and what is mental illness and trauma, and how do they all kind of play together, and how do they interweave with each other. But maybe you can kind of start out by giving us some definitions of these various areas.
Sure. So when people hear the term mental health, it can be a real turnoff, and people can automatically think this is a bad thing. But it's so important to differentiate between mental health and mental illness or mental disorder. Everyone has mental health, because mental health is our well-being of our mind, and our, like, the same way that you would go to a doctor to take care of your physical health. That is what mental health is. So everyone has mental health. So then when we say mental health issues or mental illness, we're talking about a problem with the functioning of our mental health, that something isn't functioning the way that maybe God designed it to in the perfect health form. And so it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. Like, it doesn't mean that the person needs to go to a mental health like asylum or that you're crazy. I truly believe that every single person at some point in their life will have mental health issues, because it just means that we're not feeling as sharp as we want to be, and that there's something that's impacting our functioning in daily life.
So, Brianna, coming out of the pandemic right now, we're kind of still in the pandemic, but kind of coming out. I mean, there's been reports that 45% of adults have reported that they've had some kind of mental health negativity because of the pandemic. And certainly there's been a lot of talk about that with kids, and maybe how kids have experienced trauma through the whole pandemic. So maybe you can kind of address that and explain how trauma fits into all of this.
Definitely. So I like to define trauma as our body and brain's experience of a negative event, which overwhelms our ability to cope. So when we think about the pandemic has impacted some of us in a very great personal way. And for others, maybe it's just, it hasn't had as big of an impact because of the way that our life was functioning prior. Within the realm of trauma, and we talk about impacting our brain and our body and overwhelming our ability to cope, there's big T traumas, which are life-threatening in nature. So it might be you're in a life-threatening tornado or a really bad car crash, or maybe you had a really traumatic experience in the hospital because of COVID. And your life was threatened. Those would be big T traumas. Then there's little T traumas, which can fall more into lower impact, but still significant. It could be coming home from school or having a really bad day at school and coming home and not being met with warmth and kindness. That can impact someone in a really significant way. It could be divorce. It could be bullying at school. So it's important to know those two things and realize that each person individually, their nervous system is going to interpret these overwhelming events, the traumas, as either a big trauma or a little trauma. And it's all subjective to our own nervous system. And maybe some of us, it didn't really impact us at all because we're really resilient and we had a really good support system, and COVID didn't impact our everyday functioning. But certainly in the realm, we're talking about children today, and there are implications for kids with trauma in the pandemic.
So no doubt we're seeing these kids come into our churches today. I mean, no doubt that we're seeing that. I mean, it's just changed a lot. So we see kids coming in with traumatic, that have been impacted by trauma or are experiencing unhealthy mental health. What do we do? Or how do we recognize it? First of all, how do we recognize it, or what do we do with it?
So I'd like to give a little more background information into what happens when we experience trauma, because there's a very direct, I am a very trauma-informed, attachment-based therapist in how I see the world and the way these events impact us. And so when we experience trauma, it dysregulates our nervous system. If you think back to anatomy in high school, our nervous system regulates everything that we do. It maintains homeostasis. Well, when we have an overwhelming event, our body's interpreting an overwhelming event, it's overwhelming our ability to cope. It leads to our body not being able to handle it, and it leads to dysregulation. Makes sense, right? That dysregulation is what leads to a lot of our mental health issues, or the diagnoses that you see in the mental health realm, such as anxiety and depression. When our nervous system is dysregulated, it goes one of two ways. We can go into a keyed up state, which is when we see the anxiety, aggression, anger. It's what we know as fight or flight. When we are like, okay, I have a chance at survival. If I fight, if I don't know, I have a fighting chance. So I'm going to do what I can to keep myself safe. My nervous system is doing this automatically. And it could even just be, maybe you're sitting at your computer right now and it's been a really chaotic day, and you're like, you came to the computer, you sat down and you're feeling really jittery inside and you're noticing you're keyed up. That would be a dysregulated nervous system. If we notice what's going on, that we are not in a state of focus, or it's hard for us to connect with those around us, and we're feeling those physical symptoms of anxiety, that is a dysregulated nervous system. If you think of it like with the color red, just like a keyed up, we'll use that word, keyed up response of anger and anxiety. Then we have our kids who, when dysregulated, they do what looks like the opposite, but it's really not. When we see behaviors like shutdown, withdrawal, depression, that means that our system has detected a danger and we feel like it's too much to cope with. And so we go into almost like a collapse. And it's actually our kids that are in this dysregulated blue state, if you want to put the color blue with that. Those are the kids that are of most concern, because that's when we start to see the suicidal ideation and the hopelessness. The people over here that are feeling keyed up, they at least believe they have a chance for survival. So when you see kids showing aggression or anger or are anxious, in a way, it's a good thing, because it still means that they have a fight left in them and to will to survive. When we shut down so much and there's such a collapse, our system is interpreting that as it's too much to handle. I need to just go away. And those are the kids we really need to look out for in our ministries in particular, because they're not going to be as obvious, right? They're going to sit in the back. They might be really quiet. They're not going to maybe use their words to tell you that they're struggling, whereas you are going to give a lot of your attention naturally to the kids with the big behaviors, big feelings that are a blatant problem and disrupting your functioning of your children's program, right? But really keep your eye out for those kids that have the blue dysregulated nervous system. Did that answer your question? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. So, okay, so you have these kids at two varying places, right? So talk us through, what do you do if you see kids in this state? What do you do? I guess first you got to notice that they're in that state. You have to not just write it off and just say they're just being bad. Although, can they just being bad? Are they just being bad?
Yeah, we were talking about this before. I really believe that all behavior is language. And even if a child is being blatantly disobedient, they're trying to tell you something that they don't have the words to verbalize to you. So I encourage you to look at all behavior as language, and just take a curiosity of, I wonder what this child's underlying needs are and how can I meet those needs. So I'd like to pull up my PowerPoint and share with you. I have a number of slides from a workshop that I did at a children's pastors conference in January. So I'm going to take a piece of those to share with you, but it's really important to just notice that, like she was saying, it's critical to show attunement and really notice what's going on the face of the child. I hope that you guys can see me. I'm not sure, I'm small now. But really being attuned to what the facial expressions are of the kids coming in your ministry. What's their body language saying? How can I, instead of just like going through a check mark list of everything that I have to get done on a Sunday morning or whatever day your program is, how can I be attuned and really see the child emotionally and what they're experiencing, and how can I connect with them? So one of the ways, I don't have this in my slides, so I'm just going to say it now. One of the number one skill I like to teach to people is reflective listening, where we're simply repeating back what we hear the child saying, or we're noticing, hey, you look really sad right now. I'm noticing that you're sad. The child may say, no, I'm not sad. I'm fine. Okay. You don't want me to know that you're sad. I just wanted you to know that I see you. And it's really uncomfortable to be seen when you're not used to being seen. And maybe for you on the adult side, you're like, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to cloud emotions. That's scary. I encourage you to get comfortable with that, because you will not be able to meet the needs of kids with mental health issues in your church unless you get comfortable with your own feelings. So, anyways,
That could be a whole other workshop.
that's a whole other workshop. I just did that one at another conference. So anyways, I'm going to jump into this slide now. So what do we do? I've given you a little bit of a background about trauma, the nervous system, mental health issues. We know these things are happening in our ministry. We're seeing the signs, we're seeing the behaviors. I like to say too that any behavior can be a survival behavior. So when we're in a dysregulated state, we can use even just people pleasing is a survival behavior, trying to do things so that we're accepted and we've learned how to remain connected and keep things calm, to keep our world functioning. So really just reframing all the behavior that we're seeing as like unmet needs or bids for connection that the kids have. And it's all, but we're seeing, a lot of the behaviors. So the ultimate goal is to regulate the kids' nervous systems. I'm not a children's pastor. I have volunteered for years in children's ministry, which is how I got my start in this realm of mental health counseling with kids. But I really want you to think about, like, all the following slides here are going to be, how do I regulate the nervous systems of the kids that are in my ministry?
Because that's important, because you can't do anything unless they're regulated.
Yes. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So why that's important, because you're probably thinking, I'm not a therapist. They can go to counseling for that. Why do I need to do that on Sunday morning? They need to learn about Jesus on Sunday morning. The reason is kids' brains, their thinking brains, go offline when they feel like they're in danger. So that's why it's so much harder to connect with them. That's why it's so much harder to use words and have a conversation with them. And it seems like they're being so rude and non-compliant. It is because their thinking brain is offline. So I really encourage you to meet the needs of helping their bodies feel safe, because all the great stuff that you're teaching becomes irrelevant if they don't feel safe and their body isn't regulated. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. When a child is drowning, don't teach him or her how to swim. So, if we saw one of our kids fall into the pool, we are not going to be yelling instructions from the side, teaching them, like, in that moment, hey, move your arm this way, move that arm. It's not the time. We're jumping in that pool and we're comforting, we're doing whatever we need to help them get regulated, to calm their bodies. And that's essentially what I want you to think of in your ministry. A lot of kids are coming in drowning. And even if you are in an area where there's a lot of middle, upper class families that it looks like everyone's doing well, everyone's good, there are still emotional needs that are unmet. My client population is pretty much fully middle, upper class families. And my number one issue I have from kids is my parents don't see me. I feel emotionally missed. And so certainly the kids coming into your ministry, they might have their physical needs met, but there are emotional needs that can be unmet. And that can lead to some of the behaviors that you see. They're just wanting to be seen. So I truly believe, this is a Brianna statement, so do with it what you will, but I believe that regulating the nervous system is key to providing felt safety in your ministry. A felt experience, the felt experience of a child in your ministry is just as powerful as what they are learning about the Bible intellectually. Because they could be learning a lot of really good things with their brain, But if their brain's offline, that connection isn't even being made anyways. And then what if they're learning a lot of good things, but they're not getting treated well? Do you see how that becomes a disjointed view of Jesus? Like there's an inconsistency. Relationship is so important. That felt experience of Jesus, being seen, heard, valued. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them." Like, I just imagine Jesus being surrounded by kids and looking them in the eye, being on their level, being present with them, and not, of course, yes, he had his parables and lessons to teach, but like playing and connecting, I believe was at the core of who he is. We won't find out till we're in heaven, but that's just my belief.
Well, and
So
Brianna, can I interject something here? Because I just had this thought is when kids with, we're talking about mental health issues, but kids with disabilities, and here's where a parallel would come. Sometimes we think that we've got to give them the lesson plan with the 3 points and they've got to memorize all this stuff. But what you're saying is like that you can experience Jesus through the relationship of the volunteer with the child. And that could be just as powerful as a Bible lesson.
yes, because wounding that happens through relationship can only be healed through relationship. And so there's just so much power in that. Yeah, that's a great point. So how to create felt safety. These are some basic things that a lot of you do already because you work with kids, but see the need behind the behavior. Like I already said, I'm going to go practical after this. These are just some overarching points. Aim to connect. How can I connect with this child in this moment? A lot of times connection comes through playfulness, which people in kids ministry are great at. Use less words. The wordiness starts to feel overwhelming. That can be dysregulating to kids' nervous systems. So they'll use less words. That's the way to go. Make schedules predictable. Ask permission to hug and touch. Separate webinar, sexual abuse, very prevalent. I'm not going to go into that now, but certainly there are kids in your ministry that have been sexually abused, and they will also be exhibiting what we call mental health issues or these trauma behaviors. And so that is very real. Focus on relationship versus behavior modification or productivity. It's so tempting, right? Because you have this schedule you're trying to get through, like maybe you feel this pressure coming from other leaders or just from what parents think, like you've got to check all the boxes, you got to do all the right things, but meanwhile you're missing the kids. So it really is such a big thing to sit with and say, okay, like, is what people think of me more important, or is it more important to meet kids' needs? And where they're at. I'm not saying throw out all your programming. Don't hear me say that. I'm just saying it's important to take an honest look about what's motivating what we're doing and what we're not doing. Giving choices helps kids feel empowered. So, if a child is exhibiting big anger, do you want to go on a walk with me in the hallway, or do you want to go throw this pillow against the wall, which I'll show you a picture of in a second. Reflective listening, I did actually bring that up already, but really just leaning into what the child's experiencing and reflecting that back to them with words. And then regulating yourself first. When kids get keyed up, we get keyed up. We're picking up on what's happening in their nervous system. We often detect that as danger. And then we go into our own stress response. And it's really hard for us to be present because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. We're trying to keep the other kids in the ministry safe. And so, or we just maybe feel uncomfortable. We have a kid who has separation anxiety and won't leave mom. I don't know what to do. I start to feel anxious inside. Maybe that's you. You're thinking that, like, I don't know how to help. Then I automatically become dysregulated. And so it's really important to pay attention to what's going on in your body and then meet your own needs, step away, take a deep breath, problem solve, to help you feel focused and present with the child before you. You can also just ask kids what they need to feel safe. Kids are surprisingly in tune at times with being able to articulate this. And so I have some examples coming up in these next slides of what choices you might be able to give them, because sometimes they can't come up with it off the top of their head. Sometimes we can't come up off the top of our head. So having some things in your tool belt to give choices is really helpful. So here are some creative ideas for your ministry. First of all, be proactive rather than reactive. You may be in a really big ministry and you see anxiety, depression, anger, meltdowns. These are the big ones, but certainly there's lots more, lying, whatever. You might see these all the time. Or you might be in a little church and you really haven't had it yet, but you have a feeling that these kids could be coming, or maybe they're there and you don't know they're there. I encourage you to implement these things now, to take a proactive approach rather than reactive. Because if you wait until a problem comes up, it's going to be too late and you're going to go into more of a stress response and panic. So be proactive. So if a child is anxious, these are just some things that I've recommended to churches that I believe are helpful. You can create a calming corner with a calming basket. You could have this in one room. You could have this in every room. In this picture here, I have plain paper for drawing or writing. I have a coloring book, a weighted lap pad, a Mind jar, which is like just a glass jar with water, food coloring, glue for them to shake up and watch glitter fall slowly. Fidgets, gum is regulating, noise canceling headphones, and a breathing ball, which is not pictured there. But basically, this is when you're short staffed, which I know many of you are, you don't have the volunteers to give the one-on-one tension all the time. If you notice a child struggling, you lean in and reflect, hey, I'm noticing you're feeling anxious right now. Would you like to go to the calm down corner and pick something out of the basket? You can choose to stay back there with them, or you can walk them back there, help them get settled, maybe in a beanbag or comfy place, and then go back to whatever you're doing and check on them after. But these are some choices that you can offer if you notice the anxiety. These are helpful for anxiety when they're in the keyed up state. These could also work for anger too. It's important to also know that the sensory elements of your environment can cause a dysregulated nervous system. So I believe that autism was the webinar that was done last month. With kids on the spectrum, we see this so much where dysregulation comes from an overstimulated nervous system because of sound, lights, those sensory elements. So we're seeing then a keyed up state, and some of these things help to bring that calmness. So it's not just for kids with mental health issues, it's also for kids with special needs.
And that's why there's so much parallel between the two.
Yes,
you know,
definitely. If a child's angry or aggressive, I like to have a separate room. If you don't have that capability, a separate area, maybe another corner if possible, with no breakables, only pillows and bean bags, soft objects that are pictured there that can be kicked, punched, or thrown. It's not always possible. I'm going to be honest with you. I have this issue a lot in my office where kids are aggressive. They destroy my office. I have to, let's just say when I'm not proactive and when I don't have the tools handy, my stuff gets destroyed. So from firsthand experience, just having a place, I mean, this could be a similar place as your calm down corner with that basket, where it could be a dual use, where it can be a comfy, cozy place for the anxious child and also for the angry child. Along those lines, I'll often put a square on my wall, or just permanently have a square on my wall and have the child throw a soft plush ball at the square. So I'm redirecting the behavior. If they're trying to throw something at me, hey, wait, No, why don't you take this and throw this at the wall? Like, I'm giving you a yes. Yes, I'm for you. You feel like you need to keep yourself safe right now. Here's how you can do it in a way that I'm okay with. So creating a target to let them safely release their anger. Then there's kids that are, you might see them hiding. I have kids at my office that every single week, and this is multiple kids, like probably like 3 to 5, like different clients per week will hide under the chairs in my lobby or behind the couch. And they know me, they've been seeing me for years, but there's still an element of, can I trust you? I don't feel safe. And so I like to proactively, this is actually from my office, I have that tent in my office as a space where kids can hole up if they want to. And instead of like working against them, show them that you're for them. Already have a space where they can feel safe and secure. And so you could do it through a tent like that. Or if you're low budget, you could do it through something like this. Large refrigerator box, some old quilts or blankets, and there's actually a child in there. But this really helps cultivate felt safety by providing security. And kids, especially I find from trauma backgrounds, really like to be in that enclosed space. It helps them feel secure. So that's a very practical one that you can utilize. When a child is shut down or unresponsive, so they're in that blue category, I encourage you to try writing messages to the child on a whiteboard or chalkboard or paper. I have like, we call it selective mutism, when a child just like won't talk. And that's like the ultimate form of anxiety and shutdown, because their like vocal cords are like completely like inaccessible. And so if you ever see that, or a child just is stonewalling, they look like they're gone, try sliding a piece of paper to them and writing a message to them, or drawing a picture. I find that kids are much more willing to write than talk. So that's a great tool to have available when you need it. And then also, I have this emoji chart that I use. It's on my website if you want to grab it. But this just helps kids to be able to identify how they're feeling. Maybe they're shut down and you're like, I have no clue what this kid is feeling right now. Could you slide on this sheet and just be like, hey, can you circle for me? Like, what's going on for you right now? Again, I know you're not a therapist, but like these are things that you need to know, like how the child's feeling, especially if they're not using their words and they're shut down. Other tools for regulation are listed here. There's a lot of different ones that I'm not going to go into today. If you want to take a screenshot, you're welcome to do that. And then if you have any questions about them, you can ask at the end of what specific ones are. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but all of these things are meant to help the nervous system get regulated back to that homeostasis where the child can feel calm, focused, present, connected. I'm just going to call out real quick on here, snack and water. If you have the budget to just keep some cheap snacks available for kids that they can ask you if they're hungry, even kids that come from good, well-to-do families, or they can afford food and they had breakfast before, if they're feeling hungry when they're at church, they're going to become dysregulated much more quickly. And that is a basic need. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy, when our bottom needs aren't met, we can't get to those top levels where we're like intellectualizing concepts and learning things. We need our basic needs met. We may try a lot of regulation tools, but sitting with a child and listening may be just what they need. So just, again, focusing on that relationship is huge.
This is really good. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm gonna just have 2 more slides and then we'll
Okay.
be finished. Give yourself permission to meet kids right where they are, physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, no matter what people think. So I'm encouraging you to expand your lens of, instead of just looking at the spiritual component of the child, to see the whole child. And I can't do a workshop without showing my boo. So here's my little boo character. And so often we just see the behaviors that a child's exhibiting, and we miss the child behind the behaviors. And so I'm encouraging you to see that child and not just get hung up on the behaviors. So, fact, you are the greatest regulation tool in your ministry. And relationship is the most powerful thing that you can offer every single child. So you might have already thought this, right? Well, today you just needed a therapist to tell you the value that it has. And so just be encouraged that, like, even if you have zero budget, you can't do a lot of the fluffy stuff, you can be you, and you can work on being fully present and emotionally available to these kids, and really hone the skill of noticing what's going on with them and leaning into that to connect. So that is what I encourage you to do. I'm going to stop this share now.
Awesome. Good stuff, Brianna. Not just saying that because you're my kid, but good stuff. I think one of the things that is so impactful to think about is that we always think about we have to have the perfect lesson. Everything has to be perfect in place. And really what you're telling us is focus on the child and what do they need, and sometimes what they need is for us to be Jesus with skin on to them and to see them and just to really be focusing on that. So it's a little bit of, you've challenged us to think outside of the box when it deals with, ministering to kids that may have mental health issues, or kids with trauma, or just kids in general. And so good stuff. We may need to bring you back again because I feel like we could keep going on and learning about this. I think we maybe only have time for a question. Carrie's going to be coming back here because we're going to be giving away some prizes here. But if you have a quick question that you have, maybe we've got time for one question. I would say the whole relational part is so important, whether you're working with kids that have mental health issues, kids with disabilities, kids with unique needs, whatever that might be. The relational part is so important, and it's hard to minister to kids if we don't know them sometimes, if we're just coming in our program. And I understand the big challenge of you've got so many kids that you have to do ministry, and you're trying to take care of a lot of kids at one time, but really being able to focus. So one of the things that we love to do is teach churches how to provide respite care, which is really spending time with kids. Respite care is like a parents stay out program for kids with unique needs. And the great thing about it is it not only gives parents a break, but it gives the one-on-one time with the kids where somebody can focus in and they can say, I see you, and they can get to know the child. And you have like just unlimited time to get to know a child, or you've got 3 hours to get to know a child, which is hard to do on a Sunday morning sometimes, and be able to implement all of this on a Sunday morning, but to really spend time getting to know a child. It's a great missions outreach, and it's a great way to train volunteers. So being able to put into practice some of these things that Brianna's saying outside of the content of Sunday morning and practicing during a Parents Day Out respite program is a great opportunity to be able to do that. And I know, Carrie, you're going to be giving away a free training here in a moment for Buddy Break. To be able to do that.
For those that are still on with us, we'll do that. And we also have another prize to give away. If you have some questions, go ahead and put those in the chat right now, but we'll go ahead and do that. And if you're on, then we will go ahead and get with you afterwards. So Marie, do you have your
my shameless commercial?
Yes.
Yes, we have a book called Hope Lives, and it's actually it's a story of our son Nathaniel from womb to heaven. It's told from a child perspective. It's a easy read. Will help you maybe gain insight into what it's like for a child that may have a disability, have unique needs, and as they walk their journey through life and through the struggles, it'll give you an understanding of all that. But also there's great tidbits on there on what you can do to walk alongside a family that may have a child with a disability. So we'd like to give that away right now to somebody. And who is that lucky person, Carrie?
Well, let me open up this. I have the names and we'll see if you are still on. We'll connect with you. So let's go ahead and see who gets that book.
And there they go. That's a
Gotta
fun,
be
that's a fun
in
tool.
the US to get this book. And let's see. Susan. So Susan, if you are still on, we will connect with you to get that to you. And then if you would like the book, we have it in our store at shop.nathanielshope.org. And if you use the coupon code webinar, you can get $5 off on that book. So it's a great book. I'll plug it too. I read it really quick and it's really good.
It's got lots of pictures.
That might be why I read it really quick. And then we're going to go ahead and give a Buddy Break BLT away, basic leadership training. And this is an in-depth leadership training about Buddy Break. And our next one is June 21st. It's live online. So let me open this up and
that's basically how to run a respite care program or a parent stay out program for kids with unique needs. And it's a lot of information that we don't want you to have to think about it. We just have given you the risk management, liability, the training for your volunteers, all the pieces to put that together. I see Carrie here. Somebody says we have a foster care Bible study group that meets. Oops, just lost that. They had a question for Brianna here.
Well, yeah, let me do this and then we'll go ahead and go. I think another question through. We'll go over those. I know we have a couple Buddy Break leaders in here, so you guys really don't need the free training because you have access to it at any time. So if your name comes up, we'll spin one more time. And that is one of our Buddy Break leaders. So let me spin one more time. Brandon. So if you are still in here, Brandon, we'll go ahead and connect with you to get you set up with that BLT. And let's go ahead and check out those questions that have come through. So
okay. I finished reading this one here. I had
sure.
it here. We have a foster care Bible study group that meets at our church twice a month on Friday nights. We care for the kids while their parents are meeting. Do you have any special ideas for them? Because many have come from trauma backgrounds.
Yes, a great tool or resource, if you haven't heard of it, is Trust-Based Relational Intervention, TBRI. TBRI was established in Texas Christian University, and they have a ton of free resources for educating like your volunteers on trauma, on like a lot of videos online. They have other like activities that you can do that are very geared for meeting the needs of kids from trauma. It was developed for kids, what they call kids from hard places, but also is now used for kids from all backgrounds. But it was really, it's used in orphanages, churches, schools. So TBRI, I can type it in here too. If you just Google that, especially on YouTube, the videos are amazing. So that's a great resource. You can also feel free to send me an email. I put my website, breezecounselingcorner.com, in the chat, and my email's there. And please feel free to reach out if you have any more specific questions about that.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope there was a lot of good information that can help you as you're ministering to kids in your ministry. If you have any other questions, like Brianna said, her website is breezecounselingcorner.com. If there's anything we can do to help, you can email us at buddybreak@nathanielshope.org. We want to help you however much we can. Or however much you need us. So we appreciate you being a part of today's webinar, and we look forward to connecting and helping you in the future. Oh, And
Yeah, one more thing, if you happen to be in Orlando area or you are looking for a reason, excuse to come down to Orlando, Florida, we want to invite you to the biggest party that we call it Make Them Smile. It's the biggest party celebrating kids with special needs coming up on Saturday, June 4th. We're very excited that the Olympic torch is going to be coming through our event. And it's a big day to celebrate kids with unique needs. We're going to have about 3,000 VIP kids there, kids with value and incredible purpose. So would love to have you join us. You can tell your families about them if you've got kids in your church, or if you're a parent of a child with a disability, it is worth coming to. So you can go to our website and learn more about that at nathanielshope.org. So again, thank you. Brianna, thank you for joining us today as well.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all these feedback in the chat. That's awesome.
all right, thanks so much and have a great week. Bye-bye.